controlling us.
Yes. We are just
I'm
puppets in
somewhere.
this.
I think Joe's the controller really out of us three.
You're joking, aren't you?
I think he's the one who's brought us all
I'm the
to do
monkey
his
Dory, if anyone.
to do his bidding.
What
No,
do you
yeah.
mean?
You know what I mean?
This is the opposite of what the situation is, because I'm forced in here every week, not the other way around.
Is it forced? We don't know.
No, I
welcome.
welcome the podcast.
Yeah,
And
like
it
I
was
said,
actually my fault that we missed a week as well, so that's on me. I didn't think I was going to be the first one to
I don't know.
cause a disruption.
I don't know. I was 2 hours ahead, so I was like,
No,
I was
Ben.
so tired.
Take it. Just take what Joe just said. It's Joe's fault. Okay, that's
It
all
is
we need
my
to know.
fault.
I tried to, when I was away, I was trying to like mentally prepare to do the podcast in this hotel room because the walls were like paper thin.
Yeah.
Like, and there was an elderly, not a couple. There were just two women, and they were so loud. And I was like, they're gonna have a hell of a time listening to next week's Spill the TCG podcast for 2 hours. It's gonna be great.
Oh God.
Well,
And teaching Alex how to record. That would have been great as well.
that
Yeah.
would have been a fun segment. I mean, I can record. It's just the settings that I've never been able to tinker with yet. 'Cause I haven't needed to so far, right?
It's really complex as well. It's
not.
really complex.
Now you've literally seen what he's done, and it's moving 2 bars, 2 levers. That's all you need to do. That's literally it.
All I'm hearing is people are listening, they're enjoying it. The quality is just, it's the best in the world.
Like your mug,
We're
Rab.
getting there, aren't we?
And
Yeah, they're nice.
mug.
He's not talking about your face either.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I've got. Yeah, go on. Just start it.
Might as well actually start
Just
Welcome
start it.
back to the Spill the TCG podcast. You've already heard us ramble already for at least a few minutes, but we haven't had an episode last week, so we're coming action-packed with a few different areas this time, I like to think. So it's myself, Alex Dow, joined by our regular 2 people, but I don't know, beside me, it looks like, if I recall correctly from the little frame, Joe Bernard and Benjamin Rabiati. How are your last 2 weeks, boys?
You want to go, Rab?
Well, mine was relaxing. I was away. So this was a great scenario for me. Anybody who knows me, this is brilliant. So I was away on holiday for my partner Harriet's friend's wedding. I knew no one. So she was away doing like the girly stuff, and I was just on my own all week in Greece. It was brilliant. It was the best time ever. I was doing nothing. Nobody was talking to me. Nobody knew who I was. It was great. I didn't have to talk to anybody as well. But no, it was really good. It's really good. Obviously, you couldn't do the podcast last week either, so I was just kind of catching up with what was going on in the sun. Everybody was tuning into Stockholm beachside in Lindos View Hotel. It's great.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So Harriet gave you some time alone, but you can give us some time away from you, Ben.
No.
The last 2 weeks now. Yeah, brilliant. Thank
Absolutely not. No, I so throughout the week, so every kind of Facebook group chat that I'm involved in, I don't do messages very often. I do audio recordings. So you guys were having that like actual conversations that I was having with Harriet, the table side. So it's great. It's like bringing you 2 along with me. And you enjoyed it. You enjoyed it. The topics were wild. It was great.
I can't believe it. Yeah, some of the topics were bizarre.
What were one of those topics that you decided to come to us with?
They were like football, mainly football related.
Chatting with Harriet about the most vague, uninteresting topic.
So usually when we go quiet, a lot of couples will just have their dinner quietly, not even talk to each other or talk about family or talk about like plans for the future. My brain works very differently. I started thinking like, right, what do I say now? Like that's how my brain works. And then do you realize how much PSG have spent in the past 5 years. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. And that's the sort of monologues that go on in my head. It's a real problem.
That's the conversation starter and ender in many ways, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And then what was funny was a lot of people were asking us when we got back. So did he pop the question then? Did you pop the question? And I'm like, absolutely not. But PSG have spent 1.6 billion in the past 5 years.
Harriet's going through all the random questions that you asked her throughout that entire weekend. Like, oh, you asked a few, yeah.
And what made it better is usually when you go on holiday, like poolside, you'll have a bit of entertainment. Like there'll be kids screaming, or there'll be like some sort of ruckus or something. I don't know why there'd be ruckus in the hotel, but like some sort of like drama or whatever. But
friends,
it was
normally friends.
Yeah. But it was it's like middle of May, so it's like off season. So I think the average age of the hotel was about 75. So it was just like I was telling Joe, I didn't know whether people were just unconscious because they didn't move. A lot of the people. It's great. And again, that I made it so quiet. So it was a really, really, really enjoyable holiday. One of the best I've ever had. Because I was alone.
Where did you go again?
I went to Rhodes, Greece.
There were some great photos. Rhodes is a nice place. I've been there once before.
Yeah.
Very nice.
But it was good. Lots of cats as well. But yeah. What about you guys?
Oh, go on, Joe. Over to you.
So I had a much more Pokemon packed 2 weeks. For Indianapolis weekend, I locked Jack here for the long 3-day weekend, and we just played Twilight Masquerade format. So I've really sunk my teeth into that format. I've looked at all the City League data at this point. So I'm pretty well versed in the standard counts of things, and we just started repping games as well. So a few of the archetypes were just for content essentially, but it's cool to see that even in City Leagues over the last couple of weeks, they have started to adjust to Dragapult, and things like Blissey EX and Raging Bolt with Ogerpon have started to uptick. I also bought some Regidrago V-Stars this week because I think it actually could be viable with Ogerpon, because you get to yoink Dragapult EX's attack now. So you can play the I have Goodra and Dragapult EX for the one prize matchups, and then I have Raging Bolt and Tina V-Star for the high damage output matchups. So that's actually kind of interesting. And then this week was Stockholm, of course, and I was commentating it, so I was there from Wednesday. Got to interview Azul on Thursday, which was Galaxy Brain, because he obviously ended up winning the tournament, which we'll get to later. But it allowed us to have such an easy storyline going through the entire weekend, because that's where we started, and obviously he finishes the tournament. So, and Stockholm was an awesome place to go to, which again we'll touch on. And the tournament ran pretty smoothly overall, so no complaints really from me. The only issue is I've come back with a bit of a cold, so I'm hoping to shake that before Bologna, which is my next tournament to go to.
I mean, still got a while before Bologna, so
yeah, I should be fine. I should be fine. Yeah.
I'd be worried if you weren't fine by then. I think.
I need to be 110%. That's the thing. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. But yeah, we will touch on to Stockholm regionals, of course, in due time. But yeah, that sounded like you were about to give us a whole vlog of what you've done for the last 2 weeks.
That's incoming. Don't worry about that. What was your last couple of weeks like, Alex? What were you up to?
Yeah, I mean, unlike yourself, that first week was very non-Pokemon related. I think it was just a focus on the usual day job, 9 to 5. It wasn't really a 9 to 5 for that week, to be honest. But yeah, and then it was just kind of prep for Stockholm. I mean, I set some targets for last couple of tournaments I hope to be playing in. And yeah, Stockholm, it was generally a good event, right? We'll touch on it a little bit more. Maybe we'll just crack into it, to be honest. But Stockholm,
you may as well.
Itself,
yeah, we can change our running show around a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Stockholm,
Yeah.
I mean,
you guys are pretending this has structure, but it's like
we started off with your.
You have 5 bullet points, and we're already off task on bullet point 2. So that's the level of prep.
We've gone from 0 to 3. And I'm not sorry for it.
And a 7, and then a 2, and then a 1, and a 6, and then we'll
right.
get all those,
Don't
sweet spots.
Don't pretend we have a 7. They will not believe that we have 7 points written down, because we don't.
Shoot me. but we haven't got a structure.
0.5 on our structure is 3 letters, and I don't know what they even stand for, so I'm confused.
What
I'll
is
let
it?
Alex lead that one.
Is it A or B?
Yeah.
Is it A or B? Is that...
Any other business,
I
yeah?
Any
I
other
literally asked you anything else you guys want to cover, and I just got yeah.
It's fine. We've got so much to talk about with 0.3 that we're gonna be fine.
It's funny.
I mean, we'll stake on from Stockholm regionals, right? It was a good
Yeah.
tournament. It wasn't as big as most other regionals in EU of recent times. Let's crack on with you first, Joe. You were part of a dynamite team on the casting. Alongside Ross, Shay, and Freya. I mean, how was casting Stockholm regionals? Your first time casting this format, I guess, right?
Yeah, it will be, yeah. Because it's only been
Will-
EUIC before
Yeah.
that, right? Yeah. So yeah, it was really cool. Great to have Ross and Shay on one side providing a lot of energy, and it really gave me the impetus to raise my game to that level as well. Where especially with Freya, who also leans analytical, we're both quite similar really in where we land in terms of where we are in the team, where we're both sort of analytical leaning. So we both really challenged each other to raise as much energy as we could into the broadcast, because next to us it's Ross and Shay who obviously bring the energy every single time. So trying to inject that in was pretty cool. I tried a new couple different things. I prepared like a monologue, which I haven't like ever done for a casting thing. It was only like a 1.5 minute thing, but I think it played quite well, which was mostly just talking about how the start of the Temporal Forces format was all Charizard. And I was basically doing this whole like it's the dinosaur era, then comes the Ice Age, which was basically the punchline basically of like Indianapolis was the meteor that hit and caused an Ice Age. That was essentially what I was going for. So it was cool to do like a monologue, and obviously at that point in the stream we're killing time, right? Because it's before a round has started. We start in round 3. We basically start the broadcast during round 2. So me and Freya were on the desk for like 40 minutes, basically trying to kill time. So that's the time to experiment with fun, goofy, time-wasting stuff, essentially, because it's going to help the broadcast overall. And actually having something prepped to give the viewers like, here's where we are, here's why you should be watching this week, I think is actually really important for later on stages of a format, because it's very easy to be like, it's Charizard again. You've seen it for the last 3 weeks. We'll give it to you more and give you more of that. So experimenting with new stuff was pretty cool. I haven't cast with Freya for a long time, actually. I think it's because, like I said, our styles are similar in where we both have strengths in similar places, that we're not often paired, because it's better to align different people's strengths to have like a well-balanced duo. So I think I'd more often be casting with the likes of Shay and Ross typically on these broadcasts. So having the chance to cast with Freya again was pretty cool. I was a bit upset day one because I had like I had 3 rounds, I think. I had like basically an Ancient Box versus Dialga, which was a pretty like straightforward matchup. Like games were locked in pretty quickly. Then I had like a double donk because a Roaring Moon EX plus non-EX hybrid basically just double bricked, and the guy didn't give himself the best odds to win either. And then I also had the final round of the day, which is round 9, Azul's winning in. And I actually think he ties that without me notifying the deck list error, which is so bad. It's quite funny that he's been trashing EU, saying that like competition needs to step up, when literally he's been entirely bailed out by a judge ruling in round 9. By the way,
actually, he would have made day 2 with a tie as well, right?
Oh, that's right. He was down for.
Yeah, he's down.
You are right, actually. But yeah, I just thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, it certainly helped him make top 8, I'm sure. But yeah, it was very awkward that and I basically picked, for those who didn't watch the stream, I picked up on a decklist error for Azul's opponent, and those are the worst times to be casting, because there's people backstage giving you different information, and more like the judges are trying to do their thing, and they're making their own decisions in the back where we can't really see or hear what's going on. We don't have the best communication to the judges, so oftentimes it's like the judges will tell production, then production will tell us, and this, that, and the other. And as that's happening, we're trying to give the best broadcast possible. But as soon as this error has happened, we notify the viewers essentially, and then more gameplay is still happening. So it's hard to balance like, this is what's still happening in the game, but is it even relevant, because there could be a judge ruling anyway that changes everything, and we don't even know how that judge ruling will go. So I was pretty upset with day 1 just based on the games I had. especially because Ross and Shay were getting bangers. Like all the games that I was watching from them, obviously they're casting it very well, so adding the energy and whatnot. But I was like up and down in my seat just from like situations that were happening. For anyone who didn't watch day one, definitely watch Fabian and Tord's game, Charizard versus Gardevoir. One of the most insane games because really well played, but then also it becomes this mudslinging contest of just like panic Ionos into each other in the late game. It was so good. So I was upset that I just had basically bad RNG on my round by round. And then day two, it was fine. It was better games, and I got some cool stuff in there as well. So yeah, I think the casting was fine. Happy with the adjustments that I tried to make for this one, and I'm gonna keep trying to bring that same level of energy that I did this weekend and basically every broadcast, because I think that's one of my main criticisms or weaknesses, I suppose, as a caster, is that I have the analytical side down to a high enough level, but it's not being boring and being interesting to a wider audience, which other casters do way better than me. So that's still always going to be my feedback, I think.
No, it's good. I mean, just hearing all of that, it's a lot of information to take in there from our side. Of course, we'll probably have another episode speaking about casting in general, you know, EU, NA, this whole kind of how we've kind of come into it. But it's like really insightful to just kind of see how our pairings and how we sort of interact with one another. In the EU, we've historically done quite a lot of sort of rotation, which has been quite nice. Just to have a bit of fun because, you know, again, similar scenario, me and Joe typically wouldn't cast too many games together, but we've had opportunities to. But I mean, Ben, you said you were watching Stockholm Regionals. How did you find it?
I was extremely jealous of anybody there. And also Joe having the opportunity to cast such an amazing tournament. I mean, I looked at the top 8 and I remember messaging Joe being like, this is just the most busted.
It's on our lap, that top 8. Yeah.
This is just the most busted top 8 I've seen in a very long time. I remember you messaging back saying, this is like an IC, and it definitely was. And I mean, I didn't have a live update, of course, of who made day 2, but then, of course, when the lists came out, on Limitless, I think it was yesterday or the day before, I was looking at that day 2, and the player cohort, it just looked completely stacked. The entirety of the day 2. Some of the names popping out, of course, having the Americans come over as well.
That was massive, I think, actually.
It definitely bumped up the competition a lot more.
It's such good news that Azul won, or just an American high-profile player won, because I think it will incentivize more travel.
100%.
You know, we've seen like Shemansky, Zatlasage, Gabe, they've done it before, but now having like 20 people thinking it's worthwhile going to all of these regionals. Obviously, this is like a unique case because it's latter stages, so it was always going to be a smaller tournament. But having that like carrot on the stick for more Americans to come and play just means better storylines and better stream and just better players getting their just rewards, really. So that's really exciting that there could be more international players coming over.
I agree 100%. And I mean, looking at the meta as well, again, still variation on show. A lot of lists really trying to take some risks as well, and a few new archetypes popping up, or at least carrying on their kind of tiny popularity. Speaking about decks like, you know, the Arceus control sort of build without Radiant Charizard, it's like those sort of builds kind of creeping in now. And of course, I did laugh when I saw Azul take the entire win, because when he won the winning in, I thought he's going to take it all the way and prove me wrong, because I said a couple of weeks ago that you just shouldn't play
I
the
specifically asked you the question, will Snorlax win a regional this season? And you were arguing against it. I was arguing for it.
It's so
just saying. It doesn't become a bad deck overnight. It was overtech for, which was basically exactly my argument.
It's so difficult, right? Because like on paper, you would rather play the Pidgeot build, I think. I don't know. I think
the specific reasons that Azul gave was that you're better into Dialga and you're better into POW if you play pure Lax. And that's what he was targeting. And like he didn't even play Sinnohs in his list, so he was like sacking Lugia and Tina. He just said, I hope I miss those, and he did. So it's exactly what we expected of, like, you pick your tournament for Snorlax. He picked the right tournament, and is obviously a very good player. So.
You play less risk, I suppose. Yeah. 100%. And I mean, he capitalized, like you said, on having some
he
good
could have
matchups
just
here
hit
there.
Lugia's, he could have just hit
Yeah.
Tina's, and then just he's toast, right? Whereas the Pidgeot is trying to have the more broad spectrum of decks accounted for to an extent at least.
Yeah.
So it's a calculated risk that paid off for him.
I was trying to think, does this make it unplayable for the next couple of weeks, or at least up until?
I mean, that's what.
LAST?
So like pre-EUIC, everyone came with the techs. It didn't do great.
No.
This weekend there were
Yeah,
no techs. It did great. So
Yeah.
This is how the sort of cycles of the meta sort of come swings and roundabouts, right? As Joe just kind of mentioned, just everyone preparing for Snorlax because it was on everyone's radar. Had a great matchup spread going into EUIC, but people are going to pick up on that, and then that's where you got toured with the Yells Cheer and Double Turo. LM Pidgeot Control became maybe more of the playable version of Control. Tord obviously came to the tournament with that Charizard sort of hybrid Control list. That I think was seen. I think Liam Halliburton played it as well at a previous tournament, actually.
Yeah, he played. So he won Orlando with Tord's list, then played in Indianapolis with a hybrid. It had also been in like Japanese lists and on Laylim lists as well. So there's been murmurings of this combo before, but obviously Tord's just high profile and did make some like specific changes to the list as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you're right. It's not the first time, but obviously this is the deepest run we've seen it up to now.
Yeah.
No, like I said, it was really interesting because Scandinavia is typically somewhere that's quite easy for the Americans to actually come over to. It's quite easy, quite quick, quite cheap, and it was good to see. I think from what I can look at, there was 20 players from the United States of America, 5 from Canada. There was a good amount of players there. We saw a lot of players travel for. I mean, even Brent Tonneson was there again, but not unexpected from his Mr. Worldwide travel.
Yeah,
dude, it's insane. I interviewed him. When did I think it was day one. Must have been day one, but he was saying that basically he has to go $1,500 plus to be in a plus. So it's insane that he's getting rewarded for this just for how good he is at the game. Because like, think of the risks you're taking every tournament you turn in up to. Having that pressure to basically 16 or better every tournament is nuts, and the fact that he's done that all season is also nuts. By the way.
Yeah.
Truly incredible. But yeah, some really interesting decks just kind of rounding out that top 8 as well. We had the Sable Zards. We have, of course, Hermione with his Lost Box, Rotom V type list, which was actually really interesting to see as well. Chien-Pao was still batting around, John Eng making top 4. So yeah, it was a very diverse, but again, swings and roundabouts meta. So it'll be what feels good to be very different going forward, because people will just naturally react, right?
Yeah, and I believe there's a few tournaments this weekend coming up. Let me make sure. Yeah, so LA is not this weekend, 25th. So that's next weekend. Santiago this weekend. That's in Chile. I wonder if some Americans will go to that. But yeah, so there's still a couple more events in this format. Also a ton of SPEs in the more wide-reaching countries that don't have many tournaments, so that'll be interesting to follow. But yeah, Dialga kind of underperformed, but there's been more time for people to maybe test that list from Indy. With just that 1 week turnaround to Stockholm, maybe there wasn't enough time to practice it. But also I heard people were talking about NTV techs and other going back to Max Belt and all these other things to help that match up, So maybe it was just some adjustments from the high tier stuff as well. Obviously, going from Pidgeot to regular Snorlax was also in part because of that. So
I wonder if, because obviously it won Indianapolis, Andrew Hedrick playing it and piloting it superbly well. I think a lot of people don't give it enough credit that it probably needs quite a bit more testing, because you are constantly knowing and understanding your bottom half of the deck, right?
It's actually so cool.
Yeah.
It's
so
like playing Flesh and Blood.
Really well.
Yeah,
it's like 100%. Playing Flesh and Blood, where you do this thing where you pitch stack. So the second cycle of your deck
revolving.
Is know what's in it to an extent. And we actually saw, I think Hedrick did it either in top 4 in finals, where he Metal Made just so he could Pokestop into Prime Catcher, because he knew the order of his deck, which was just so cool. And that is lost on Dialga. And go on.
Maybe people picking up, just kind of instinctively picking up because it just won a regionals, may have not done as well as we maybe would have expected. I would think if we had a US regionals straight after Indianapolis, we would have seen a lot more people pick it up. Naturally, just because I think from an EU perspective, our reaction is more kind of, well, we'll just continue sticking with what we've got or making the small changes to adapt to Dialga. So yeah, I'll be interested to see it going forward, whether it does take like a third or fourth spot on that kind of graphic of most played decks, because it is a really good deck. You just need to put time into it.
It's fun as well. I think you forget. You know, you can't forget how fun it is to play. I mean,
he's got them. He's got them.
The Metal Maker ability alone, I mean, it's got such high roll potential.
The days before the broadcast, it was all so Freya brought Lugia, Goldengo, and like Dialga to the table, and I brought Zard and like Arctina. So we were basically just putting Dialga against everything, so we could just see the ins and outs of that archetype, thinking it could be more popular in Stockholm. But it was cool to see just the intricacies of that deck. And how you can checkmate with Mew, and how you can checkmate with like Zama plays and all this other stuff, and specifically just like when 2 Chronos was like the biggest question mark that like Freya, Ross, and I and Shay were all like debating of like when do you maximize value versus when do you like take what's on the table now, and that was pretty interesting actually. And I think we saw that on broadcast, like one of the only times we had Dialga on stream. I was basically just saying when the best time was, and the player didn't do it at the right time, then lost. And then the second game they did it at the right time and won. So it's literally get down to how to capitalize the most on Chronos, basically.
Yeah, I agree. We also had 2 other tournaments this weekend, right? We had 2 special events.
There was actually a few tournaments. So Bogota in Colombia was also won by Snorlax, if I'm not mistaken.
It was,
yes, correct.
We had the Thailand Championships, which is kind of cool to always see tournaments from across that way. Was won by Lost Tina. We had double Lost Tina in the finals, actually. And Puerto Rico special event was picked up by Jose Marrero. Well-known name.
Yeah, it was.
With Golden Go.
Just quickly, if you're looking at Thailand results, it does have at least Blood Moon Luna, so I don't think they're fully in line with Japan, but I think they have, what's that set called? Let me just check what the set name is. I think they have Crimson Haze. Yeah, they have Crimson Haze legal. Just if you're looking at the results on your own,
It's like the only new card in that Lost Tina list is the Blood Moon Luna EX, isn't it? So,
yeah. But if you're wondering like where's the Dragapult, it's because Dragapult's not out, but Blood Moon is. That they have the Japanese standard. Just as a small note there.
Oh yeah, Unfair Stamp was in one of the lists as well, which is again pretty big. But it's always kind of interesting because we get that insight from the Asia tournaments, right? As it feels like we're slowly converging to almost quite a close release schedule, but at the moment, for the time being, we do get a lot of information from across the seas that way. But one thing I wanted to highlight as well, one of the things that we got to see in the top 8 were 2 of the titans of the tournament of the modern era right now, on opposite sides of the bracket.
Oh, we were so close.
We were so close.
So close to greatness.
The issue is, and Azul said this on his podcast, that if it was this Clash of the Titans, Azul is like 1585 in that matchup. So it wouldn't have been the clash that we would have actually wanted. No. So as the script goes, we had to delay this one to where it's more of a 50-50 matchup. So the writers knew that this was just the bait, and this was just the tease for when it actually happens.
Yeah. I mean, just having Tord and Azul on opposite sides of the bracket is would be truly a spectacle if we ever get a chance to have a finals like that. But alas, we saw Tord in that top 4, unfortunately.
He got scammed, man. So he didn't play Manaphy in the whole broadcast. I was like, I can't believe he's not playing Manaphy. And then like later on, I realized that he prized both his hit point buffing tools, and he just needed one of those to be able to protect a Pidgey and be fine. But the fact that he prized Bravery and Cape just meant he was done. And obviously Harmony had like the nut start, partly because their list let them rotate him up extra cards or whatever.
Yeah.
But their deck was running flawlessly for like the first 3 turns.
That's for both of you. Does Rotom V become staple in a Lost Box type variant going forward?
I mean, I wouldn't play Lost Box, but I like the way Harmony's built it. I would only play Fish if I played Boss, though. I don't think Fish makes sense without Boss in the list.
Mm-hmm.
I like the Rhodes on view. I think it gives it potentially gives that Lost Box that missing edge of consistency where it needs those explosive turns that we've been speaking about before on previous podcasts, where we're like, Lost Box is obviously the high roll deck at the moment. You really need to get off and up and running as soon as possible. I think Rotom V fits quite nicely in that and gives you what you need. I think it's a really good inclusion. Really, really good.
Yeah, it definitely worked wonders whenever it was on the stream, so Rotom's justified itself, no doubts. What's also really important is that oftentimes you're not actually plussing as Lost Box because you're always spending a switch card to gain a card from Comfey. So actually gaining 3 cards that stay in your hand is just like so busted when like Pal won't hand disrupt you, Zard has to Arvadon 2, the control decks don't care, like ancient decks don't care. So many decks just won't Iona you that you sit on 10 and then like you pop off with Chorus from there and then you sit on like 15 cards after like gating to 2 different things. So Hermione identified like a moment in the meta where no one's going to Iona you immediately, so Rotom gets its value, which is pretty cracked.
I think one thing I was surprised at though was there was no ability to get it out of the way. So there was no penny or there was no collapse stadium, because I think having it on board early, obviously giving you those 3 extra cards can put you over the edge to where you need to get to. But I think having it on board as a 2-prize vulnerable low HP Pokemon can really kind of put your prize map, especially against decks like Charizard. It can put you in those really awkward positions if they're able to early capitalize and knock out.
I don't think it does though, because I think you're usually using it to spike on turn 2. So you'll have got to 7, and as long as you're not using Greninja, you're using Moon or hands anyway, and you're saying that I've got two prizes on board, and you have to take out the one with energy like every time. So like it just means that he can't whiff late game, because if he gets Iona disrupted and just has to like leave Comfey active and Rotom to draw 3, then he can lose to Boss. But I suppose he's just hoping to like Roxanne people back or something like that. There are weaknesses of the Rotom, but I don't think it's like a tempo weakness, because he's gonna use these cards to then put more 2 prizes in play anyway, almost always. Unless it's a Greninja.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily loses the game, of course, like just having it on board, but especially having the Rotom and the Lumineon, I was just surprised that there was no method.
It just shows his mentality though, right? It just shows that he has to use, like, Lost Box basically is a 1-prize deck for a turn, and then becomes a 2-prize deck, because then you're still forcing someone to take 4 attacks to beat you. And you're hoping that you can win in 4 attacks by then with your other stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's not I don't think it needs a way to get rid of Rotom.
Oh, okay.
I think it's okay as well. Say, if you're going first and you're able to use instant charge, more often than not, your opponent still probably needs a turn to set up themselves anyway. They're not going to be hitting 190 turn 1 or maybe turn 2 sometimes. So I can see the.
Oh,
it's a nice inclusion. Oh no.
It's fine. You said it's a nice inclusion. We got you.
There you go. It's a nice inclusion. It's just another Forest Stone target, right?
Yeah, that as well.
He didn't say he never attacked with it. That would have been quite fun.
Sad.
Yeah,
honestly sad.
Short.
Sad.
Yeah,
but I was
Fan was one of his coolest choices as well. That was also like a big choice, I think, that helped him get far, because Ancient Box was possibly more popular than expected day 1, and it's good for that matchup, and it's good for Zard as well, because you can push hands to KO Pidgeot clean and KO Lugia clean as well. I think those are actually pretty big inclusions. It lets you moon through a hands as well without having to self-damage, which is pretty massive also into like future hands or Miraidon or Mirror. So
it makes up for a lot of nice numbers in the format. I know a lot of people had really hyped up the Defiance band from that list, because it's one of those moments, right, where you look at somebody's list that have done well and you go, oh, of course, it just makes sense. Why didn't anybody think of this?
It's mostly because which is wrong, by the way. A lot of the Lost Boxes have been playing Artisan this whole time, and I just think that's toilet. I thought it was toilet before the set started. When it was in Japan, I was looking back actually because I'm doing like impact of the new set, and I was talking about in the Japanese format how much I hated Artisan being a staple stadium, and I was recommending even then that Pokestop and Townsville were better choices. And it's taken a while, but they're finally like in a list, and then it enables you to go down this pathway of like, if I'm playing Townstall, which Brent and Hermione both played, let's like tech it out a bit. So I think that's why it's taken so long for it to make sense, because before it didn't make sense because everyone was playing Artisan. But we're not Sableye late game gamers anymore. We're EX late gamers now.
Yeah, the lists have definitely evolved through the months gone by and all these different sets.
All I'm saying is, I always loved Artisan Pokestop. That was on all of my lists pre-EOIC. That's all I'm saying.
Artisan Pokestop. I thought you said Town Store.
Yeah, Town Store stop, not Artisan. Yeah, Town Store stop.
There you go. Just making sure. Just
One of
clarifying, Joe. You keep bouncing between them. You know.
Too many stadiums.
I mean, like I said, it was a great tournament. Like it was a good venue. It felt like there was a lot of space for us. Obviously,
very convenient location as well.
Yeah.
So we could easy trains from the airport, everything around the venue, lots of restaurants, lots of hotels, and easy walk to tubes and everything else. So you could get to Stockholm Central. It was actually pretty perfect, I think. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that being a location again. Like it made, like we were in Stockholm because Malmo was busy doing Eurovision. For those who don't know, we were literally kicked out of the city we normally go to. But it could end up being a silver lining, and that could just end up being a better venue because there was still tons of space. If we had to double that size, you easily could. So
yeah, there were a lot of reports on how comfortable people were with the amount of space that was on offer. So it's good to hear people having a positive experience going into the regional.
Yeah, I mean it was 700 masters, right, or less than that. So
it's tiny.
We had tons of space.
Tiny.
Yeah, it was actually wild. Yeah, it was wild that we were all just in like one chunk, because normally there's so much of us now that there's like chunks over here, chunks over there, just of tables. Yeah, and you basically get lost in the snakes and ladders of it all. But I think it was all a lot easier this time, which was cool.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they took the literal feedback where they had the player tables like right by the curtains to go backstage as well. So instead of this whole long running between the whole venue to try and grab people,
is that feedback?
Games,
I didn't know that.
I think it ended up being like, I mean, maybe too close to the curtains.
The top, so for the runners, I can see how that's really important that top tables are right by the stage.
Because you know when games are picked, we get 10, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, we need something now. You know, if we don't
there's been once or twice where a caster's had to run out to stop a table from starting just because like a runner's not there yet or something like that, right? Like they can be at the hive or doing something else.
You said they've gone AWOL.
No, it's not on the runners. It's just like situational.
There's sometimes I play a funny joke where when I'm casting and I'm walking around, I'll go to like table like 400 and I'll go like, guys, you're on the stream.
Why would you do that?
It's only people I know, obviously. Not just random people. It's just funny, yeah.
You shouldn't abuse your power like this.
It's just funny.
Stop telling people Ben has power, Joe. What are you doing?
Yeah. It's gone to his head already.
Oh, Joe. Yeah, I mean, yeah. You entertain yourself, innit?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's that.
Watch the games. There's a game right there.
Yeah.
Literally a broadcast going on. Tons of entertainment.
No, it's before. I go out and watch it in front.
I don't want to know what you do in your breaks, man.
We're hearing enough on his holidays, I think.
Yeah. I'm usually giving voice notes to you as your.
Yeah, good point.
As your caster.
Why do we post that again? Oh, it's another episode, is it? It's fine.
Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah.
Moving on. Stockholm Regionals. It was good fun. But we've also had some new information dropped today, I think. We've had the announcement of our last set before Worlds 2024. Joe, take it away. Go on, Joe. I know you love it.
Well, I love the fact that we're getting a new set before Worlds. I think it's always more interesting rather than being like a reaction to NEIC. It's quite bizarre that we don't even have cups in the NEIC meta, so it's literally like a one tournament and done situation. Other than people who aren't going to NEIC who get to play like a cup or something. But yeah, even maybe not even then, because I think the cutoff's on the Friday, right? Yeah, so yeah, you're literally just playing in exactly one tournament, and it's the biggest tournament of the year. So I think that's quite a bizarre situation, just the way that NEIC and Worlds have fallen this year, I suppose, date-wise. But it means that it's likely going to be a smaller set. I think it's like a sub 100 card set. So hopefully it's going to have a similar feel to London 22, where Pokemon Go was introduced, and there was a handful of interesting cards to like direct our testing or give us maybe like a new archetype or something like that, but mostly be like support cards. It looks like, you know, we've already seen one new A spec, the stadium card, which looks like kind of low power, but also like interesting enough, I suppose, where you can turn other non-rule boxes essentially into having Mimikyu's ability, which is kind of interesting. But as we know, that there's going to be stadium bounces in most decks anyway. And the other stuff we've seen is the Loyal 3, the EXs and Petra Run EX, which might be the like out the box archetype they're trying to feed us, which is like a trilogy of different basic low to the ground EXs. I think you can hit like 300 with the Okidogi for 3 energy, which isn't that bad. With the Binding Mochi tool, and Pheasantipede is like a spiritual reprint of Oricorio GX, which was a very, very good card in its era. I can easily see it doing well again. Then Monkey Dory can be a bit of prize denial. It's like a bulky one prizer essentially, as long as you have Petron in play. So it's like giving you out the box synergies of a new low to the ground aggressive archetype, I suppose, is what it's trying to be. So there could be something to build around there. I wouldn't expect to be a huge amount of like really impactful power cards. I think it's mostly going to be akin to Pogo, where you get like the biggest card being Pokestop essentially from Pokemon Go. Add Snorlax, I suppose. So I think it's going to mostly be like tweaks from the NEIC meta, but at least it means that players have that 1 month to do more testing, more theory crafting. And I love Worlds rewarding the most well-rounded players in that they have to be decent deck builders and adapters. They have to put in not just time for the NEIC, but also put in time for the Worlds format, which has enough differences for people to practice, and then also, of course, be good like in-game as well. So I like a world champion having all the qualities on display, and I think either a rotation or a new set always helps with that.
Yep, I mean, Pokemon TCG, Scarlet and Violet, Shrouded Fable is the name of that upcoming special set. I think, do we call it a special set? So I'm not really
sure,
sure.
It will be,
mini sets. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it says over 95 cards. Whether we'll break the 100 is
there she is.
There we go. Hasn't pooped in the corner yet.
Not yet.
Hang on, are you sure?
She was doing it on the desk.
You're still holding your breath there, Ben. Just, throughout a weekly basis.
Yeah, my voice will get higher progressively as the.
Oh, I can hear it.
Can you actually?
She wants grub.
I just did. Yeah.
Is the audio so good you can hear?
That's how good this audio is.
That's how good it is. That's insane.
That's the level we've got to now.
That's the evolution of this podcast, going from how do we get Ben to be louder to hearing his animals.
I just want to set the standard, because it'll only get better from here.
And that's a promise.
It'll only get better. Yeah. I think from a set. Sorry, go on.
No, you go ahead. You.
I was going to say, the looking at the set, the most surprising card was, of course, the Kiram for me. The most. It was the most insane attack.
What does it do, Ben? What's the attack?
110 to 3 Pokemon. But if there's a card with Colress in its name in your opponent's discard pile, you can use the attack for free. Which is
for one colorless.
For one colorless, sorry.
It's typically a 5 energy cost attack.
Yeah. For one colorless. Obviously, we've seen cards tried to come into the format to break the meta in terms of kind of shifting it by having that really a big threat, against a big archetype in the format. We've seen it with, say, like Drapion Me, of course. You know, it was so splashable, people would put it in their decks to just beat me of VMAX. But of course, with this Kiran, people are making that similarity between this and the Drapion V for Lost Box specifically. Because, of course, you can take out so many of these little squishy Pokemon being either 110 or lower. 110, of course, being Cramorant, and then lower being Comfey, Sableye, etc. This is a massive card, I think, for the format.
Do you think? I think it's trash.
I think so. Oh, really?
I think this card is trash. Lost Box so frequently plays Manaphy anyway. Like, at least Sablezards do, and it's not a lot to ask for Turbo List to play the card. Plus, I don't think Lost Box is going to be a high enough percentage to warrant anyone playing this card. I don't think it's got the same Mew effect, where, like, Mew was still holding at 8%, even with the 3 different tech cards they brought out to deal with Mew. I think Lost Zone, by the time we get to Worlds, could be sub 8% easily.
Okay, so you're saying it's trash on the basis that Lost Box will.
It's a solution that we don't require, and also like Tina could already be playing. Like Tina and Lost Box could already just play Manaphy.
Well, Tina.
And I don't think like what deck is losing so badly to Lost Zone that they want to play like Kiram Cologne, for example, as a combo. I don't think there's any that will do that.
I mean, I was just saying that this is a good card against Lost Box, but I mean, if your argument is that
you've made the argument, and I think you're wrong.
I think I still think it's a very good card. I still think it's a very good card. I've taken
all the other cards. I've
regardless,
made you talk about Kiram,
I think regardless of Manaphy being in the deck, I still think that this is a big threat.
Why?
Because it is splashable. Put it in anything, right?
Yeah, but if Manaphy's in, so. Like, Mew couldn't just play a 1-card response to, like, Drapion. Like, it could play, like, Lost City or Path, but these were, like, retroactive or proactive things that your opponent could still get around and still get their value. Whereas playing a Manaphy prevents all of Kiram's value, unless they're also playing Cologne, which is insane. Plus, like, we already have Jirachi as well. Like, is Jirachi not that soft tech that helps Lost Box in a lot of situations anyway? Like, maybe. I know Sableye's not the front man anymore, but I'm not that impressed by this card. Also, like, Tina's can play like 1 Comfey. They do that against Chempao already in early game situations, and then just put multiple down late on. And especially if we play double vacuum like Hermley just has, you can do the same thing as Lost Box now. You can 1 Comfey board states and still get to 7 on 2, and then just be a multi-prize deck.
Wow.
That's like without Manaphy altogether. So I think this is like an off the rails way to beat Lost Box. Also, they've had to hit Colrus, which never happens.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, I guess from hindsight, my impact more than just other Lost Box. But yeah, I get it. We're getting a little bit of insight into Joe's crystal.
It can't affect anything. It can't affect anything but Lost. I told you, I'm looking at the new format already.
I mean, I'm laughing because Alex is laughing at me receiving a berate from you saying that this just isn't good.
No, I mean,
I think it's okay. Like,
you're allowed to.
I'm not saying
back and.
I'm not saying that it'll be played in every deck, but I'm just saying that this is a card to consider, I suppose.
I'm saying don't consider it in any deck. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, case closed.
Like, what actually? I'm not gonna.
Months, boys.
Lost Box is a 50-50 deck, and so is Tina. So, like, just play a consistent 60 and still have 50-50 into both those archetypes. Whereas Mew had, like, hard wins unless people teched for it.
So are we saying this is overkill, or are we saying that Lost... Right, okay, there's 3 different arguments. Are we saying that this isn't the best threat against Lost Box? Correct. Or are we saying Lost Box is too not irrelevant, but it's not relevant enough to warrant
also
this?
Correct.
Okay. And what was the other thing?
Go on, 3.
Is it overkill? Is it too much?
Is it too much?
Yes.
Okay.
All 3 of those, which is why I think it will see no
Okay.
play.
Well, look, I mean, I thought it was alright.
I could be wrong.
You
We'll find out.
Certainly could be wrong.
Yeah, you're not.
In a few months' time.
I have a feeling. I have a feeling you're not wrong. I mean,
He's
Yeah.
been wrong before, Ben.
Bro,
Don't give him that.
I mean, like, I remember the chatter when So last Worlds actually, Spiritomb was new off the block, right, and could have been a tech
Yeah.
from Mew, and no one did it. And that was Mew when people were going in at like 13% at every tournament. You know, Lost Box and Tina combined maybe make 15%. So maybe you can make that argument, but also it's cheesy as hell, and they can adapt. Maybe Lost Box and Tina are so slow that you get the game one cheese, and that's the best of 3 already done. But I don't know. This feels like one of the weakest one-off inclusion techs. It's a 2 retreat cost basic as well. If you start this guy, you're literally just like,
That's starting team, isn't it?
I mean, all you need to do is hit a chorus, right? At that point, and then energy.
You're begging your opponent to hit chorus.
You won't.
Please hit chorus so I can win.
Just do it. Go on.
That's funny.
Pass.
That's quite funny, isn't it?
No, I mean, going back to the point of Worlds, because obviously Worlds is very different now, in the fact we don't have like a day 2, the structure of Worlds, and we don't have the extra day of people reacting to day 1 techs or different new decks that might come out when we do get new sets that drop for the World Tournament. I think it's really interesting, right? You've already mentioned how finding an all-rounded player where you're not just a great in-game player, but you're also a great deck builder. You're also someone who's willing to put the time in and test a completely new format, but before it has been, this time with a mini set or special set. It's more tweaking, probably what we've maybe understood from NAIC. So lots to look forward to, I think, boys.
Yeah, have you started to book anything, Dow? Are you close enough with just... You need a top 1K of NAIC, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I realised I didn't actually talk about Stockholm myself.
You got points.
So pre-Stockholm, I had a target, I had a goal of essentially getting... I said minimum points at Stockholm, which would put me into the sort of sub 50 point bracket. Because the lowest amount of points that you can get at an IC, which I haven't been able to play yet, of course, because I was very fortunate to work EUIC, is top 1024, right? So that's 50 points for top 1000. And I ended up top 128 with a 522 record. Had some really fun games, really interesting games. It kind of showcased exactly why and how little I play sometimes of this game. Because the first couple of rounds, I'd made some really weird mistakes that just shouldn't happen. You know, you've seen
that's
before.
I was about to say that's quite common with you. I don't think you fully switched
Because
on.
Dow's preparation is look at Pokemon cards a day before every tournament.
No,
never again until the next tournament.
It's waking up one of us. So there's a story in Liverpool recently where Alex was like tickling my toes to wake up. And he was asking me how he played Snorlax, which is even funnier. And I was like, just gust, mate. And then I went straight back to sleep.
Just catch a block. Duh, night.
There was some nuances. Was counter catch even a thing then? I don't think it was.
What were you worried about? What was the list you were...
I think it was 1 or 2 matchups, which is I just like couldn't quite...
This is the thing, Dal. So you've lastminute.com'd and won a nat, so now you're just like, you can lastminute.com everything.
No.
You can't get away with it anymore.
It's tried and tested, mate.
The game has changed, right? Back in the day, when I could show my age a little bit, I could go to a tournament, generally pick up a deck and do relatively okay with it. Round 1 and 2, they were kind of testing grounds for me where I'm like, figure out some synergies and, combos and stuff and making the deck work. Now with all this information out there, it's thrown me off my game, right? Now I actually have to put some time in. I played Charizard at Stockholm, so I have played quite a bit of Charizard, I guess, online and when I can. But it was the first time sleeving up Charizard, I suppose, in an actual tournament. Pre-cup, like cups and challenges, I've been playing around with Ancient Box and all sorts of random decks just to kind of get a feel for them post EUIC. But yeah, I walked into Stockholm Regionals. Like I said, shout out to all the opponents I played. It was good fun and it was great conversations I had throughout. But ended up taking some points away, meeting my target of getting to that sub 50 threshold, and now it's just NAIC. And yeah, so I am booked in. got my ticket,
Nice.
and yeah, we're. It's the biggest thing though for me having to look at an NAIC format is that if it was EUIC, I was looking to get the last points for a tournament before. Not everyone is doing that at that stage because you still have
Yeah.
2-3 months to go.
Mm-hmm.
NAIC, you've probably got a good chunk of players out of the 3,000 odd that are going to be attending in the Masters tournament who are actually looking for that last 50 points.
Mhm.
And that's a scary thing because you don't have anything after that.
No.
It's like it's points or literally as Shay would say, it's points or go home scenario where it's donezo. But it'll be fun. I'm gonna take it as my sort of mini worlds. If I don't make it somehow.
Have you looked at any of the City Leagues or Champs League results or anything? Do you have any like first impressions of where you're going to start testing?
I think naturally early on it was just kind of looking and kind of theorying, I guess, Dragapult as much as I can, simply because it covers quite a good range. I actually did order Regidrago V-Stars as well.
That's
nice.
brilliant.
Just because it felt. Oh, I had one or two before, and then I was just like, this actually makes sense because you can
I
use
can't believe
so
we've
many
both
different attackers.
independently done that. That's wild.
Yeah, because you were saying it before we started recording, right? Joe was saying like, "Oh, I bought
sorry,
Regi."
Oh, was that before we started recording?
Yeah.
So
I never know when you hit record.
No. You were saying You were telling me. You were telling me when before Dow.
You were recording yet?
No, before Dow got here, he was telling me that he bought Regidragos.
I thought Dow was definitely here when I said that.
I was definitely here.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
I hold the algo man. But yeah, it just feels a stage one to be able to utilize that attack. It just seems I guess the range of dragon type attacks is really really cool right now.
We're finally at Mewtwo Mew tag team time where it has that versatility now. That's very cool.
So we'll see. I mean, I haven't really looked into it too much yet, but it just felt right based on the different attackers. I think when we spoke to Shay quite some time ago, when more dragon type Pokemon were being released, he ordered like Regidragos early on. I can't remember which set it was, but there was loads of different dragon type attackers that suddenly came into the fore. Maybe it was like Duraludons and all of these other stuff.
Yeah.
But maybe now's the time. It looks really cool. It looks really interesting.
Yeah, I think you can play like 4 dragons and be fine, and that's not too clunky, and you're very versatile. And they basically cover each other if one of them's prize as well. So that's really appealing, I think.
What are they? So the
Raging Bolt and V-Star for high damage. Because you can discard any coloured energy, and you can discard off your Ogerpon as well. So you can keep all 3 energy on your active, which is awesome. And then there's Dragapult EX and Goodra for 1 prize matchups.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I like
so
that.
I think that's pretty cool. And you basically you don't have to play terrible Gardenias or like Arc to be slow, and you get to keep Drago's V-Star power. And actually using your A-Spec early and then using Drago's V-Star power to get back that A-Spec later is also pretty cool. So if you play Prime, that could be massive. I've only just started theory crafting that, but it came at the very end cycle of their City Leagues, and I imagine it would have had more results given like 2 more weeks of City Leagues. But I think that's like on the precipice of being an archetype that will at least see pre-NA, and I think it's got a decent amount of legs as well. Yeah, it could end up still being worse than Pure Pult, obviously, because Drakloak is busted as well, and that gets to play more 1 prize stuff, but. There's strengths towards it being Drago. You're lower to the ground, easier to like play the game, and that's obviously something you want when you want a top 1,000 finish. It's why I played Arctina, right? I just wanted to play the game a bunch, no matter what matchup I was against, and I think Drago V-Star will have that in spades because it's going to be lots of basics and just a couple one stage 1 line, and that's it.
Yeah, it's very rare going into a tournament. I mean, going into Stockholm, my mindset was obviously just to get points, right? I didn't have to think too hard other than thinking about playing quote unquote the Bidoof, right? The best deck in format. And that's why I picked up Charizard with Maximum Belt as my ace break. So basically played Ian Rob's list or very similar. Maybe 1 card off, couldn't exactly remember. So going into NAIC, I mean, with the information that we'll have, yes, I'll tinker a little bit with things like as kooky as that.
Wacky control, come on.
Yeah, but it might be the case of picking up something that's just purely considered the best deck in format and just rolling with it and just trying to get the last few points I need. see if I can snag a world invite.
I know that this isn't your approach to the game at all, but if you just start playtesting Dragapult like now, I think you're always getting top 1,000 with it. I'll just say that.
Yeah, well, yeah. Again, it's on the to-do list. I've got to.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I've got to look after not only my kids but my.
You do have a
lawn,
life
and
outside of this game, which I don't,
and
and
work,
that is the big difference between us.
And that's why we lean so heavily on you, Mr. Joe Bernard. But yeah, lots to look forward to.
Have you maxed out on cups and challenges?
Even if I did, I think I'd be like 13 points short.
Ah, that's grim. I've got bar.
I mean, this is why I front loaded a lot of my cups and challenge. Well, cups.
Yeah.
Primarily, right. It was to just see where I can get to and whether it was worth me still going for it. Because of course, casting events and playing events, I don't know how Joe's done it before, but it's super, super difficult.
I remember at the start of the season where I was only just sorting out my binder for this season. Alex was like, "Oh, I just won another cup. I'm on 100 now." And then Alex always says this.
Smashed it so
and
early.
then Alex always says the same thing, doesn't he? He always like, "Oh, I just feel so far away."
I'm miles away.
miles away.
You're
not-
at 200 after the first month.
I'm not going to make it,
Plateaus,
boys.
right?
Boys, I'm not going to
You
make it.
have plateaued.
Right? It's
That
very
is true.
different when you can front load them, but then your max plateau point is 390, right?
Yeah.
Challenges
Yeah.
and cups. So I think I might have hit like 300. Well, not 300 because I didn't do challenges. So like 250 quite quickly.
Yeah.
But then from then onwards, it was regional events. I've missed points at one regional event, I guess, that I played, which was Stuttgart. And that was a mess because I told myself I wouldn't want to take an auto loss to control and then instantly pick the deck that auto loss against control and play two of them in the first 3-4 rounds or something like that.
Yeah.
We've all had trash
Pokemon.
regional results. The thing is, like, we can easily argue that we cast a lot of tournaments, which has made it hard, but I think we've all just had trash seasons, to be honest.
Hey, whoa. Yeah, wait until NIC first. Give me a chance.
You can make it, and
I mean,
still have a bad, for you, a bad season,
To
I
be,
think.
yeah. To
I
be
can't-
fair, it's still this goes back to a Twitter post I saw. I think it was literally like a couple of days ago, and it might be a conversation point for next time. But it was the fact that do you think said person deserves their invite if they can basically pay and go to every event, snag minimum points at those events, get their locals points as well? Are they deserving of a quote unquote? This goes back to our
we're bringing this back. Yeah. Oh,
Instinctively was.
Oh, he's
Oh.
gone.
he's gone.
Oh no, I'm back.
You're back.
No,
You're
you
back.
are back, yeah.
Right, I'm giving up. I was going to say I instinctively said no in my head that I don't know. I want to be one of those players who maybe has to like really steal an invite at the easiest route.
What's the highest regional placement you've had so far? Is it 64?
I think actually it's 128.
128, yeah.
Two 128s at Barcelona.
You've lived long enough to see yourself become the villain, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're your own worst enemy.
100%. And that's just me. That's honestly just me. So
Such an elitist.
That's great. Right, guys, got one question for you. Is there any
Here we
other
go.
business?
Is anybody going to Bath Cup on the weekend? Or is it just me?
Just you, mate.
Is
I've
it
got
just
last
me?
evidence.
Talking about
It's a popular venue, by the way. I think
So,
it's going to be quite a decent
it's in
amount
the
of
school apparently. I have no
Are you
idea.
allowed in, or?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I have no idea what to play. I can't stop putting down tier 3 decks. Is my problem. In
Still haven't seen you play
tier 3.
Fable EX yet.
Yeah, I
Get your value out of
could
those.
sleep on it. I mean, I can't play Snorlax now. I was going to play that.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that anymore.
You probably
Could
could, to be
you got control?
Yeah, could do. It would require me to play at least one game on live before I
Yeah.
sleep it up. That's the problem.
And not concede like last time.
I played one game of Espathra. One.
Only joking. They
I'm not-
conceded.
Still counts.
I'm
Still
ready to
counts.
go.
Still counts on the stats.
Right, this weekend, anything going on? Up to much? You're going to Bath then, Rab?
Yeah, and then see my nan on
yeah.
Sunday. That's about it.
Lovely.
Me and Joe are gonna get trolleyed watching the football. That was the last
Yeah,
game of the season.
I'm at Stamford Bridge.
Are you at Stamford Bridge?
Yeah, the bridge.
Yeah,
It's
I'm there. I'm going to the Bridge.
Bournemouth this weekend, right?
Bournemouth.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
we can
nice.
secure Europa League football. Unbelievable from where we've been.
Isn't
pressure.
it basically secured anyway? Oh, no, I guess Newcastle could.
No.
We
it's not.
could lose and Newcastle win, and their goal difference is better. If your lot win and we lose, it doesn't matter because your
Means
goal
nothing,
difference is tragic.
Yeah.
But we need to draw. Yeah.
Just the 15 goals or something we need, I think.
Yeah. It's still in the minus, the healthy minus. I'm so glad that the season's finally got around to this where you're actually
it's over,
which is weird.
I think this is the first time in a long time. Me and my mate, who's a Chelsea fan, have always had a £100 bet on who finishes higher for the season.
Mhm.
I think this is the first time in a long while that Chelsea are actually going to end up above me.
We are a meme. We are a meme. But like the only reason we've come back is that everyone else is so abysmal. Like I don't know what's been happening with everyone, but everyone in the league is toilet, it seems. So yeah. Anyway, that's enough football chat. That's my weekend.
Nice.
Yeah, nothing else from me other than that. Kids' birthday that I've got to take Mason to, and then go to the pub to watch the football because I think I told you, Joe.
You're doing
My draft league is gone down to the wire. So more interesting thing actually. I told you that draws don't really happen in the draft league that I have. My mate who's currently second, so we're neck and neck points wise. Had lost last night at the end of the game. He was 3 points less than another mate of ours.
Yeah.
Opta, you're given 24 hours for Opta to change the stats, and he's clawed back a draw, which means
a draw.
Which means we go into the final game of the season. It's me against second place, so first against second for the win of my league. And because he's drawn, he's still with a chance to win if he beats me.
Oh no! Because you're head to head.
Yeah, we're head to head.
Nuts.
Yeah.
So it's going to be such a fun weekend.
That's going to be tight. I'm so sad. My FPL, I've dipped out of 10k. I was as high as top 4k, and I'm down to like 12k after the double game week. I'm so sad because Wolves did terribly as well. Blame Wolves.
Always.
It was on my wildcard weeks ago when they were actually playing good, and they've turned to dregs, and Palace have ended up being a good team out of nowhere. So that's really annoyed me. So I've got 1 week to recover. I might spend like 3 transfers just to like panic punt at this point, so I can get into 10k. Because I don't care. Like the difference between I want to be at a ceiling, right? It doesn't matter if I get 19k or 15k, but if I get into 10k, that's cool. So I'll take the punts. I think.
Did we want to touch on Celtic winning the league over the?
You're having a laugh, aren't you?
5-0 against Kitty. It's fine.
The big win.
The big win against
Brendan Rodgers championing again.
Hang on. I've got a hang on.
Have you got Joe Hart shirt?
I got props here. Hang on. This is next level. This is real production.
Oh, for God's sake!
Oh my God!
Why do you have that?
So I got that as a joke Christmas present. I wanted to burn it originally, but now I think I might hang it up in the bathroom.
Just
all the other jokes that you have in the bathroom.
Whilst you take a waz.
No one can see what I've got hung up in my bathroom. No one.
That's actually insta cancel, isn't
it? only good mates. Only really good mates.
It's you know how Joe has you in his living room? Yeah. For our listeners.
I've actually I've stuck on 1 month because I've enjoyed the picture so much that I've just left.
Is it the Sailors hat?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
It's got a mustache as well, so it probably
that is what does it for me.
Yeah. I don't know what June's might be me in the swimming pool.
Oh God!
With I have goggles and a nose plug on.
Right, I think we need to turn the recorder off because we've divulged too much information.
That's Spill the TCG podcast. I don't know if he's pressed record stop, but yeah,
No, haven't yet.
make sure you
No.
like.
Cheers,
Subscribe.
everyone.
Bye.
Pants.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.